They called them wellness drops, slipped into her morning tea every single day while he carefully, meticulously catalogued her life's work, not for preservation, for auction, piece by painful piece. Imagine that, your own family, slowly dimming your light, just to sell off the fixtures. It's sickening, isn't it? I'm Victoria, and the stories I share here, they aren't always easy. But they need to be told. Stories of resilience, survival, and sometimes breathtaking revenge. Today's story, it comes from a woman I deeply admire. We'll call her Elena Vance, 82 years young when this nightmare began. Sharp as a tack doesn't even begin to cover it. Elena spent her entire life preserving history, a respected archivist, a local historian, guardian of countless stories, artifacts, rare books. She lived in a house that was practically a museum itself, filled with treasures she intended to share with the world. Eventually, she never imagined, not for a second, that the threat wouldn't come from decay or disaster, but from inside her own family, from the smiling face, the helpful hands of her grandnephew, Julian, and his girlfriend, Chloe. This story, it's about the deepest kind of betrayal, the kind that tries to steal not just your money, but your mind, your legacy, your very identity. But it's also about what happens when you push a quiet scholar too far, when meticulous research meets righteous fury. You absolutely need to hear how Elena fought back, how she turned the tables so completely, so devastatingly. Hit that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you don't want to miss a single detail of this. Elena asked me to share this, in her own words, or as close as I can get. She wants people to know, to be aware, and maybe, just maybe, to find their own strength if the unthinkable happens. So now, I want you to hear it from her perspective. This is Elena's story. It started subtly, didn't it? Everything wicked often does. Julian, my sister's grandson, he'd always been charming, quick with a smile, a little restless, always chasing the next big thing, usually in tech, usually ending in disappointment, but he was family when he showed up, talking about wanting to reconnect, wanting to help me organize my collection. I was touched, genuinely. He brought Chloe with him, all bright eyes and effusive compliments about my home, my amazing vintage things. They seemed so interested, so caring. Julian worried about my health, fussed over me, said I seemed tired, a bit forgetful. Was I eating properly, sleeping enough? Chloe chimed in. Oh yes, Elena, you need to take care of yourself. She produced these little bottles. Special herbal wellness drops, all natural, she said, just a few drops in my morning tea, my evening cocoa, to help with energy, focus, memory. I'm not usually one for fads, but they were so insistent, so seemingly concerned, and honestly, perhaps I was feeling a bit slower. Or maybe I just wanted to believe their care was real, so I agreed. I let Chloe add the drops, just a few, every day. The fog didn't roll in overnight. It was gradual, insidious, like dust settling, layer by almost invisible layer. My thoughts felt sticky. Finding the right word became a chore, keeping track of appointments, remembering conversations. It all felt harder. I felt diminished, and Julian was always there, so helpful, so understanding. Don't worry, Aunt Elena, I'll handle that bill. Let me organize these papers for you, you just rest. Chloe found a great online system to catalogue your books, much easier than those old index cards. He spent hours in my study, days, with his laptop, his scanner, photographing everything. He said he was creating a digital archive, preserving my legacy. He talked about apps, platforms, cloud storage. It sounded impressive, modern. I trusted him. Why wouldn't I? He was family. Chloe was always flitting around, rearranging things, tidying up. She'd hold up a small porcelain figure, a signed first edition, a piece of antique lace. Oh, this is just lovely, Elena. But maybe it would be safer packed away. Or, this little corner looks cluttered. Let me find a better spot for this. Things started to feel unfamiliar in my own home. Objects I'd known for decades seemed slightly off. A vase looked brighter, newer. A framed manuscript seemed flatter, less textured. But when I'd mention it, feeling confused, uncertain, Julian would gently pat my hand. Aunt Elena, it's the same vase, you're just tired. Chloe would nod sympathetically. The light plays tricks sometimes. Don't worry your pretty head. Gaslighting, I know the term now. Back then, I just felt like I was losing my mind. They controlled the mail, screened my calls, citing my need for peace and quiet. Old friends who called were told I was resting or not up to visitors. Slowly, expertly, they built walls around me, invisible but utterly confining. They managed my finances, to take the burden off. Showed me simplified statements they'd printed out, everything looking perfectly normal, while behind the screen, my life savings were draining away, my investments cashed out, transferred, gone, and my collection, my life's work. It wasn't being digitized for preservation, it was being sold, online, piece by piece. Chloe, the failed influencer, was suddenly posting about her amazing vintage finds, her curated collection. Using Julian's tech skills to list my treasures on obscure auction sites, specialist forums, hiding the sales, laundering the money, replacing priceless artifacts with cheap replicas, fakes, right under my nose in my own home while I drifted in their chemically induced fog. They whispered to neighbors, to my doctor, about my cognitive decline, my increasing confusion, building a narrative, laying the groundwork. For what? Power of attorney. Selling my house. Putting me in a home. The cruelty was breathtaking, the sheer audacity. They didn't just want my money, my possessions, they wanted my legacy, my identity. They wanted to erase Elena Vance, the meticulous historian, and replace her with a confused, helpless old woman, dependent on their care. The turning point. It wasn't dramatic, not a single shocking event. It was a quiet moment, filled with chilling clarity. I was in the sitting room, pretending to doze. The fog was particularly thick that day. Julian and Chloe were in the hallway, whispering. They thought I couldn't hear or wouldn't understand. Julian chuckled, a low, ugly sound. The old dear barely knows what day it is. Those wellness drops are working wonders. Chloe giggled. Honestly, it's almost too easy. She thinks I'm redecorating, while I'm swapping out a $5,000 print for a $50 copy. He said something then. Something that cut through the fog like a shard of ice. Just a few more weeks, get the power of attorney finalized, then we sell this dusty old mausoleum and everything in it. She'll be tucked away somewhere comfortable, none the wiser. Tucked away, dusty old mausoleum, none the wiser. The fog didn't just lift, it evaporated, instantly replaced by a cold, hard fury, a rage so pure, so intense, it burned away the confusion, the lethargy. Everything clicked into place. The wellness drops, the fatigue, the memory lapses, the missing items, the replaced objects, the isolation, the whispers, the control. It wasn't cognitive decline, it was poisoning, it was theft on a grand scale, it was betrayal, absolute and unforgivable. In that moment, sitting silently in my chair, I wasn't a victim anymore. I was an archivist faced with a complex, dangerous puzzle, and I was going to solve it. I was going to document every piece of their treachery, and then I was going to bring their world crashing down around them. That night I didn't take the cocoa Chloe brought me. I pretended to sip it, then poured it down the sink when she wasn't looking. The next morning I waved away the tea, claiming an upset stomach, and every day after that I found an excuse. The wellness drops stopped going into my system, and my mind, my sharp analytical mind, began to reawaken, slowly at first, like muscles aching back to life, then faster, clearer, stronger. The rage remained. A cold, steady flame, fueling me, focusing me. I had to pretend. That was the hardest part. Pretend to be foggy, confused, compliant, while behind the mask I was observing, gathering, planning. My archivist skills, honed over decades, became my weapons: observation, documentation, cross-referencing, verification. Julian thought he was so clever with his tech. He underestimated me. He underestimated the power of the old ways. Combined with a clear head, I started small, knotting discrepancies, the dates on the financial statements he showed me, versus the official bank logins I secretly accessed late at night on an old tablet he thought was broken, the online sales listings, Chloe's social media, bragging disguised as thrifting success. She wasn't smart enough to cover her digital tracks completely, posting pictures of my stolen items, sometimes with geolocation still attached. Julian was better. Using encrypted platforms, anonymous accounts, but he made mistakes. He used the same Wi-Fi network, my network. He didn't know about the old, very old, security system I'd had installed years ago. Before smart homes, it recorded everything, audio and video, in my study, backed up to a hidden drive he'd never find. I retrieved the drive, painstakingly reviewing hours of footage, listening to their plotting, their contempt, their laughter at my expense. Hearing Julian on the phone, negotiating prices for my heirlooms, describing artifacts he couldn't possibly understand, watching Chloe swap a genuine antique cameo for a cheap plastic imitation, each viewing fueled the cold fire, hardened my resolve. I needed more than just recordings, I needed irrefutable proof, traceable transactions. I remembered an old friend, Marcus, retired now, but he'd been a pioneer in cybersecurity. Consulted for intelligence agencies back in the day, a brilliant mind, and utterly discreet. Getting a message to him was difficult. Julian monitored my phone, my emails. I used the oldest trick in the book, snail mail, a carefully worded letter, tucked inside a mundane greeting card, sent from a public mailbox miles away during a supervised outing to the park. Marcus understood immediately the coded language we used. Hinting at unauthorized access and historical document forgery, he replied discreetly, offering his archival assistance, working remotely, carefully bypassing Julian's weak security protocols. Marcus began tracing the digital breadcrumbs, the auction sites, the cryptocurrency wallets Julian used, the shell companies. The evidence piled up, digital files, transaction records, IP addresses. It was a sickeningly clear picture of systematic plunder. But I needed more. I needed to expose them, publicly, humiliatingly, and I knew just the place. The annual Historical Society Gala. It was weeks away. They were planning something for it, I knew they were. Julian had been talking about making an important announcement there, about my future care. He intended to use my own community, my own colleagues, to legitimize his control, to announce my retirement due to ill health. Painting himself as the dutiful nephew stepping in. Oh, the irony. He was handing me the perfect stage. My plan began to form, precise, multi-layered, ruthless. First, sow seeds of doubt, but carefully, I started misplacing things Julian needed, digital files, key documents, forcing him to backtrack, waste time, become frustrated, careless. I started accidentally mentioning old colleagues, dropping names Julian wouldn't recognize, planting the idea that I wasn't quite as isolated as he thought. Then, the bait. I knew Julian was particularly interested in a set of rare cartography maps I owned, potentially worth a fortune. I let him overhear me talking on the phone to a dead line, of course, mentioning a specific map, a newly discovered detail that significantly increased its value, pure fabrication, but plausible enough to pique his greed. I then hid the map, poorly, where I knew Chloe would find it during her tidying. As predicted, she told Julian. He took the bait, hook, line and sinker. He listed the map on one of his shadowy auction sites, using specific keywords I'd planted in my fake phone call, keywords Marcus was monitoring. Marcus traced the listing, the interested buyer, an account controlled by Marcus, the transaction. Julian even sent a high-resolution scan of the map to the buyer, further proof. He was caught, red-handed, trying to sell an item based on information I had deliberately fed him. While Marcus handled the digital forensics, I handled the physical evidence, the swapped replicas, the forged signatures on documents Julian had tricked me into signing during my foggy days, the audio clips from the hidden study camera. I compiled everything, meticulously, like preparing an archive for exhibition, a digital presentation, devastatingly thorough. Bank records, screenshots of Chloe's incriminating social media posts, Julian's online auction listings, Marcus's traced transactions, audio snippets of their plotting, side-by-side comparisons of genuine artifacts and the cheap fakes they'd replaced them with, and finally, the medical reports. My own doctor, alerted discreetly via Marcus, had run tests, confirming the presence of the unprescribed sedative in my system from hair samples I'd secretly collected. Linking it directly to Chloe's wellness drops, assault, poisoning, added to the list. I contacted my lawyer, a sharp woman I trusted implicitly, laid out the evidence. She was horrified, then impressed, then utterly determined. We timed everything, legal filings prepared, ready to be submitted the morning after the gala. Warrants requested. The stage was set, the players were ready, they just didn't know their roles. The night of the gala arrived, the ballroom glittered. Filled with colleagues, historians, patrons of the arts, people I'd known and worked with for decades, Julian was in his element, schmoozing, accepting condolences for my failing health, projecting concern. Chloe clung to his arm, basking in the reflected attention, wearing a necklace I recognized instantly, a sapphire pendant that had belonged to my grandmother. Stolen, they guided me to a prominent table, treating me like a fragile relic. My heart wasn't pounding. It was steady, cold, waiting. The president of the Historical Society spoke, lauded my contributions, my life's work. Then, he invited Julian to the stage to say a few words and make an important family announcement. Julian strode up, beaming, oozing false sincerity. He spoke about legacy, about preserving history. The irony was almost suffocating. He talked about my illustrious career and how it was time for me to rest. To be cared for. He mentioned his difficult decision, stepping in to manage my affairs, my estate, my collection. For its own protection, he gestured towards me. Aunt Elena needs peace. She needs professional care, which Chloe and I are ensuring she receives. He was about to announce the power of attorney, the selling of my home, the end of my life as I knew it. That was my cue. Using a small remote I'd concealed, I activated the projector. Overriding Julian's planned presentation, my presentation flashed onto the large screen behind him, the title slide, Fraud, Forgery, Theft and Elder Abuse, the Julian Vance Method. A collective gasp went through the room. Julian froze, confused, then horrified as the first slide appeared, a side-by-side of my bank balance before he arrived, and after, arrows highlighting massive, unexplained withdrawals, transfers to offshore accounts Marcus had uncovered. Click. The next slide, screenshots of Chloe's social media, her posing with my stolen Fabergé egg, captioned Vintage Find Blessed, juxtaposed with the police report I'd secretly filed weeks earlier. Click. Julian's auction listings, my stolen first editions, my manuscripts, my antique silver. Click. Audio waveforms appeared. Then the sound, Julian's voice, cold and clear from the hidden study mic. Sell the house first, then deal with the old bat. Chloe's giggle. Click. Close-ups of forged signatures on legal documents, compared with my genuine signature, expert analysis highlighting the discrepancies. Click. The swapped artifacts, my priceless Ming vase, next to the cheap ceramic copy found in my display cabinet, receipts for the replicas traced back to Chloe's credit card. Click. The medical report, the sedative identified, Chloe's wellness drops pictured beside it, the toxicology results stark and damning. The room was silent, utterly silent, except for the clicking of the remote, slide after damning slide. Julian stood paralyzed, his face draining of color, sweat beading on his forehead. Chloe looked like she was going to faint, her hand instinctively going to the stolen sapphire necklace. I rose slowly, steadily, walked to the stage, my mind clear, my voice strong. I didn't shout, I didn't weep, I spoke directly, calmly, looking out at the shocked faces. For months. I began, my voice amplified by the microphone Julian had abandoned. My grandnephew, Julian Vance, and his associate, Chloe Dubois, have systematically drugged me, isolated me, defrauded me, and attempted to steal my life's work, my home and my legacy. I gestured to the screen. The evidence you see is comprehensive and irrefutable. I looked directly at Julian, his eyes wide with panic. You didn't preserve history, Julian. You tried to pawn it, you didn't care for me, you exploited me. I turned to Chloe, cowering behind him. And you, your only influence, was malignant. Then, as if on cue, the ballroom doors opened. 2 uniformed police officers walked in. Accompanied by my lawyer, they walked directly to the stage, the silence stretched, thick with tension. One officer addressed Julian. Julian Vance. You are under arrest for suspected fraud, forgery, theft and assault. The other addressed Chloe. Chloe Dubois. You are under arrest on suspicion of complicity in fraud, theft and assault. The flash of handcuffs, the quiet reading of rights, echoed in the cavernous room. They didn't resist, they were too stunned, too utterly exposed as they were led away, past the horrified gazes of everyone they had tried to impress. A low murmur started, then grew, not applause. Not yet, but a wave of shock, sympathy, and dawning respect, directed at me. My lawyer stepped forward, addressed the crowd briefly, confirming the evidence was being handed over to the authorities, thanking the society for its time. The fallout was swift and brutal. For them, the story exploded. Local news, then national. The archivist's revenge, they called it. Julian and Chloe faced multiple felony charges. The evidence was overwhelming. Digital trails, financial records, audio, video, toxicology, eyewitness accounts from dealers Marcus had traced who'd bought stolen items. Their defense crumbled. They turned on each other, blaming, accusing, pathetic in their desperation. The legal system, thankfully, saw through it. Significant prison sentences for both, restitution orders they'd likely never be able to fully pay, their reputations obliterated. Their names became synonymous with greed and elder abuse. Chloe's pathetic influencer dreams vanished. Julian's tech bro facade shattered. For me, it was liberating. The community rallied around me. Friends I thought lost, colleagues, even strangers, offered support, assistance. My name was cleared, my mind, my competence, unquestioned. Recovering the stolen items, that was harder. Some were gone forever, sold to private collectors overseas. But Marcus's work, combined with the publicity, helped track down many key pieces. My network in the historical world activated. Dealers came forward, auction houses cooperated. The financial losses were significant, but insurance covered some, and the court ordered restitution. Well, it was something, but the real victory wasn't the money. It wasn't even locking them away, though that brought a certain, grim satisfaction. The real victory was reclaiming my life. My home, my legacy. I established the Vance Historical Archive and Museum Foundation, just as I'd always planned. My house, no longer a dusty mausoleum, but a centre for research, for learning, protected, preserved. My collection, what was recovered and what remained, curated and displayed, accessible. Finally, I didn't feel bitterness, not anymore. The rage had burned itself out, leaving behind a quiet strength, a profound wariness, but also peace. They tried to erase me, dim my light, declare me obsolete. They failed. They underestimated the quiet archivist. They forgot that history remembers, and sometimes it bites back. Hard. My life now, it's different. I'm more cautious, perhaps, less trusting, certainly, but I'm not diminished. I'm fortified. My work continues, my legacy is secure, and I sleep soundly, knowing justice, cold, hard, meticulous justice, was served. They thought they were writing the final chapter of my story. They were wrong. I wrote it myself. That was Elena Vance, in her own words, as best as I could capture them. Incredible, isn't it? The sheer calculation of the betrayal, drugging her, replacing priceless artifacts with fakes, planning to just tuck her away, and then, the way she turned it all around, using her archivist's mind, her hidden strengths, that cold, precise fury, the public takedown at the gala, the irrefutable evidence, the arrival of the police. It's like something out of a movie. But it was her reality. The consequences for Julian and Chloe, severe, life-altering, some might say, harsh, but was it justice, or was it revenge, or maybe, when the betrayal is that deep, are they the same thing? Elena found peace. She reclaimed her life, her work, her dignity, but the scars, they remain, a reminder of the trust she lost. What do you think? Could you have done what Elena did? That level of strategic thinking? Under that kind of pressure, fueled by that righteous anger, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and if stories like Elena's resonate with you, if you believe in the power of resilience and the necessity of fighting back, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss the stories we share here, stories of ordinary people, facing extraordinary circumstances and finding extraordinary strength. Thank you for listening. I'm Victoria, and I'll see you in the next story.